Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Preaching Lab podcast. As always, you have myself, Jason Goodwin, here in Ruston, Louisiana, and my partner in we don't want to say crime. That's my partner in faithfulness, my partner in fidelity to all things gospel, the and one and only Adam Wayne Thomas. Adam, what's going on, my brother?
Much, just as you would say, living the good life,
Living the dream.
living the dream. Sorry, I
Living the
messed it
dream.
all
Living the
up. I
dream.
messed it all up.
That's Ben Sass's motto is living the good life. That's what he's
Okay,
that's what he's
I
talking
got
about.
you.
No, I'm living the dream. Let's see what has been going on. What's the latest? What's the word there in El Dorado and at Wyatt Baptist Church and in the Thomas household?
Man, just enjoyed a great Easter service. Went really well, and got to go see my parents in Spring Hill and do all that, do all that good stuff. Perfect weather. I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better Easter, right?
It was
As
it
far
was
as weather.
absolutely gorgeous on the
Yeah,
cooler side, which is always nice. It's always nice to have an Easter that feels early spring, not
yeah,
midsummer. And so
yeah.
that was nice. Question that I know everyone's wanting to know. Did you stay on schedule for Easter, or did you go unique Easter message? What'd you do?
I went unique Easter message, but a little bit connected. So I was set to be in the parable of the goodness gracious, the
Parable of
Good
the Goodness
Samaritan,
Gracious. That's one of my
Good
favorites.
Samaritan.
That one. Okay.
And so I decided to go with Peter's sermon in Acts 2 because it was all about the resurrection, and it's by the same author. And then a lot of the stuff that Peter brings up in the message of the miracles of Christ, we've been neck deep in, because we're going through Luke.
Going to Luke.
Uh,
Okay.
and then we just got to chapter 10. So he's starting to set his face towards Jerusalem and the crucifixion. That's of course, in that sermon that Peter preached. And then just also just seeing the transformation of the disciples, because we've been talking a lot in Luke just about how unimpressive the disciples are. And here's Peter and the disciples, after they receive the Holy Spirit, preaching boldly and with great knowledge. And so I kind of try to make it connect. Hey, this is good for us to kind of fast forward, jump a little bit out of ahead in what we've been studying in Luke. What about you?
No, I think that's fantastic. I mean, that's always a good argument for the resurrection, right? That these knuckleheads, these guys that just don't seem to quite get it. All of a sudden, suddenly, some weird event, some unique event has happened where they suddenly kind of everything kind of comes together, and I wonder what that could be. Oh yeah, that maybe it's the resurrections. Yeah, that's a really good thing. We've been in Genesis, so in God's providence, I got to do Genesis 15 right on schedule. I didn't we'd have to jump through any loops. So it did Genesis 15. It talked about, God's covenant with his people and how we receive those covenant those blessings, those covenant promises through faith. So it was really just talked about faith and the necessity of faith in the promises of God and how that too changes how we live and how we act and all the rest of it, and that ultimately it's Christ who's pictured there in Genesis 15 as the one who makes sacrifice for sins and redeems his people and makes covenant with us. And so it went really well. We had a good time, and thankfully the structure of our service, because we're pretty liturgical. We get to cover the same things every Lord's Day that we cover on Easter, and so it's just it's like I think the one unique thing we did was we did a children's sermon, and we've talked about doing those more often, but we did a children's sermon that was just a specifically resurrection story children's sermon, and that was a lot of fun. We may try to incorporate more children's sermon like once a month or something like that as we're going through different books of the Bible, but that was really fun and kind of helpful. So that was about the only unique thing we did.
Don't would you I think you would agree with me here. It's really good to have Easter service as normal as possible. Would you agree with that?
No, I think that makes more sense because if you're really trying to get your non-regular church attenders into church, I think showing them a service that is typical of the ones that they're missing, I think that would be way more helpful than trying to do a big production And when they come back the next week, they're like, well, this felt kind of boring. You know, I would say, nah, keep it pretty similar, keep it pretty, up to what you typically do. And I think at least that gives them a better picture of what they're not being a part
Yeah.
of each week.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, let's see. So we got Easter. That was great. Enjoyed that. Anything else? Anything else you got coming up? I mean, you probably weren't you were probably not too engaged in the NCAA basketball tournament. And I would also suspect that you
Yeah.
don't really care about the Masters happening this week. So
I don't mind watching a little Masters if I'm taking a nap and dozing. It's just a very relaxing sporting event to watch. But yeah, I don't care. I
yeah,
mean,
you don't care
even
that
if
today's the par three
maybe,
only day or anything
yeah,
like that.
nah, maybe if LSU made the Final Four, I maybe would tune in. Maybe. But I'm much more interested in baseball
Yeah, they did in that
right
other
now than,
basketball tournament
yeah, yeah,
that features
yeah,
non-males.
yeah.
But I don't. You didn't even care about Mulkey, did you?
I'm just
Yeah,
not a,
I
man, I'm
yeah,
not a
I know you're such
basketball
a casual
guy.
fan. All
Yeah.
right, okay.
Not a
Well,
casual fan. I don't care for basketball.
you
It's
got a new
okay.
coach. You got a new coach who's a lot like an old coach because he's the
Yeah.
same guy. So that's
Yeah.
that's
Hey,
an interesting thing.
we're gonna bring you back now that what you did illegally is now legal. So hey, it's
Well,
all
hey,
good.
exactly. It's good thing good thing that paying players is now not a thing, so that Wade can do it without people spying on his phone calls and stuff. So that's good. Well, that was fun. But keeping the sports theme, if we can, as a means of segue into today's conversation, we don't want to talk about sports. We want to talk about fitness. Now, here's the thing, Brother Thomas. When you start talking about pastoral fitness, a lot of people are going to say that this is just kind of on brand for our types of preachers. Do you know what I'm saying?
Because we're all muscle bound and
Yeah, we've got
perfect
beards.
specimens.
We're maybe a little bit unhealthy in our masculinity or views of masculinity, or
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe even because of our theology. Maybe our thought theology is one that promotes itself in some of these areas, or it seems like those who share our theology are all about these things. But today we want to talk about, actually, this Word of God has a lot to say about um, the way we take care of ourselves, and meaning our physical shape as well as our spiritual fitness. What do you think? You think we can avoid getting into too much trouble, or being said we're being too stereotypical? We're being
Yeah.
podcast bros.
Yeah, I think we can cover this well because I think there's scriptural warrant for taking care of our health. We live in a physical world. We are embodied creatures. We absolutely depend on our bodies as we care for our people. If we're not healthy, if we're not getting the rest we need, if we're just not looking after ourselves, it's going to affect our ministry in various ways. And so, I think
And
the
I think we
scripture.
also need to say up top, I mean, you and I both know, especially you and I, okay? This is an area of importance because we both struggle with consistency in this area. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I don't struggle with consistency in working out, but probably my biggest area of sin is food. I love it. I
Your
love it.
biggest area of sin. That's a big statement, Adam. A
It
big
may
statement. Your
be.
biggest area
Well,
of sin is
it's
food?
I can most relate. Like you find the meth addict in El Dorado that's just strung out on meth. That's a little like me in food. So like I can relate. I can relate. I love it so much.
Well,
I love
it's
food.
funny. My sister Julie, who is also a workout fanatic, right? When we were working at the restaurant together and spending a lot of time together, she would get on to me about my portion control, or really the lack thereof. She's like, "You eat all the right things. You just eat all of the right things." And I think that's kind of the problem, right? We're I'm not a picky person when it comes to food.
Yeah.
So it's not so much on the fitness end. I typically work out 2-3 days a week. I shoot for 3, but
I
it's
got to
more
tell
of
you
the
that.
the discipline end of the
Yeah.
of the caloric intake and those types of
Yeah.
things. But But this is we're
John,
kind of getting ahead of ourselves. So let's back off and let's
yeah,
say, as we kind of were beginning, why is this important? Why does it matter? Why do we care that pastors actually try to maintain some level of fitness? I think you were hitting on some good things earlier. So
yeah.
talk more about that.
So 1 Timothy 4:8, we're told that we don't want to overemphasize bodily training, but it does say right there that bodily training is of some value.
Yeah.
And it puts in the proper perspective, but it's not the ultimate thing, right? And so if scripture is going to tell us, hey, this is important, it will bring value to your life, then that should get our attention. And then it goes back again to we are embodied beings. Our body belongs to the Lord and the service of the Lord and his saints. And if we are, can't get up out of a chair, if we're bedridden because we like food so much as we just talked about, then we can't serve the Lord. And look, I don't think it's unspiritual for me to say I want to see as many of my grandkids as possible. The scriptures tell us that, it talks, especially in the Old Testament, it talks about long life as a blessing. And so I really want to enjoy everything that God has for me in this physical world, in this life. I don't want to be destroyed if that gets cut short or I find out I have a diagnosis that's I'm not going to make it very long. But I
Why do you
do
think
I do want to have a long range to do what I'm doing for the Lord on this earth as long as I can, and looking out for my health is going to help me do that.
so? Why do you think this is an often neglected discipline? I mean, if we're going to make the case that it's a biblical discipline, or at least one that no, it's not scripture reading, it's not prayer, but it is a biblical discipline because the Bible teaches against gluttony, the Bible teaches against, things not doing all things in moderation. Why do you think it is that this particular one seems to kind of be neglected quite often?
I mean, I think as pastors, we're busy. So anytime you're busy, it's hard to fit in those things. It's easy to grab the cheeseburger when you go in town to make a hospital visit. And so it's like with everything else, keeping yourself in health is incredibly difficult. And so it's easier just to not worry about it. It's easy to spiritualize it and say, well, I worry about my spiritual health and not my physical health. And so just all the pitfalls that anyone has in taking care of their health. Yeah.
So, I mean, you bring up a great example. Our ministry pattern. Sometimes ministry, you can't plan for certain things, right? You can't plan for the member that suddenly has a heart attack and is in the heart hospital, and you've got to go check on them. You can't plan on the death and now the funerals and how that changes your week. And so these ministry patterns get upset. So it's hard to have good, firm, fixed schedules and those types of things. But is that us making excuses, or are those reasons for poor behavior?
It's excuses because I think you should always be able to fit in something. Whether I mean, I'm not saying you have to train with barbells or whatever. I have a home gym. That's one of the main reasons I have a home gym. Because with my schedule, with all we have going on with the kids, if I don't have it in my back there in my shop, I'm not going to do it. I've had to try to lower all the barriers that I have with my schedule to just have it right there. But
I
it's
think
an
you just lost. I
excuse.
think you just lost a lot of guys with your home gym. You're like, man, that Adam, he's got a home gym. How did you get a home gym, Adam? What did you build
Over,
this yourself? Did you what? How did
yeah.
you acquire this home gym?
Well, we're really going to be getting in the weeds here, but I built a squat rack out of 4x4s, and just slowly over time, man, just bought a weight here. A lot of things you can look at online, or I'm sorry, on Facebook. I got a gym kind of set up on Facebook Marketplace where people are always trying to get rid of health stuff because they buy something, they get out of it, and so you just slowly, intentionally just build. You just build it, and over time, as I had money, as I could, I just built it.
No, I think that's really good. I think that's helpful too, because some people hear home gym and they're thinking you're going out, and you got all the top notch equipment. And you're like, no, I did this myself. I put some of this together myself. I bought some on the cheap side. I didn't, it's not like you've invested, you know, tons of money in this, but you were able to do it at a pretty reasonable thing. One of the cool things about being here in Ruston and being connected to Louisiana Tech is we've got this great gym called the Lambright. It's Louisiana Tech's gym for students and stuff like that. It's got an indoor pool, outdoor pool, a lot of fun stuff, right? For my family, it is only $20 a month for all of us to be a part of this gym. And so it's like that's the very low bar that makes it really easy for us is because look, I mean, the kids have a rock wall they can climb, they've got bowling alleys, they've got all kinds of stuff that they can do. And if we can make time to just go in there and work out and do some things too, then it's just beneficial for all of us. And so, whatever those barriers are that are keeping you, I think you've got to be willing to kind of acknowledge, hey, I'm not going to do it, or I don't do it if this is the case, and you got to try to do whatever you can to remove those barriers,
So
right?
like one barrier I have is I hate heat. I hate the heat. August, July, hate it. I despise it. And so over 6, 7 years we've been living in our house, I've taken a boat shed and climate controlled it. And now this will be the first summer I actually have air conditioning. And I'm so pumped about that. Again, removing the things that I hate to make it easier for me to
Yeah, I
go
think
in there.
that's I think
Got a
it's
corner.
soft.
Nah, nah. I'm getting old. I'm getting old. But I've gonna have a little home study in the corner of my gym now that it's climate controlled. So it's been a 6 or 7 kind of passion project I've had to bring it where it needs to be. It's almost there. So excited about
That's
that.
awesome.
Just
That's awesome. Okay,
remove barriers.
so we get those barriers out of the way. We see that the scripture is encouraging physical activity, taking care of our bodies, being disciplined in this particular area. But besides, lifting weights or going on a run or what are other areas of health or fitness or well-being that we should all
Sleep. I think the humility of sleep, of realizing you have to go you have to go to sleep and trust everything to the Lord that everything's going to get done while you get recharged with sleeping.
but
So,
I read somewhere that Al Mohler doesn't need to sleep. He sleeps like 5 minutes and he's the
yeah,
smartest guy in evangelical thought. I mean, come on, can't I be Al Mohler?
I'm pretty sure lately that's changed a little bit as he's gotten older, from what I hear, and also he struggles with a lot of health issues. He's very productive. I mean,
So maybe you should have got some more sleep. Is that what you're saying?
hey, yeah, I mean, look at Spurgeon. I'm not about to call Spurgeon lazy. Spurgeon was overweight. He dealt with gout, lots of stuff that he probably could have avoided if he'd have taken care of himself. And he
His
probably
mid
died.
50s?
Yeah, he died a lot younger than probably he needed to if he looked out for himself. So I think it's balance, but you just got to find time to rest. For example, last week, Thursday, I drove to Dallas for a church member's dad's funeral. Then my brother's best friend passed away, so I had to go to my hometown on Saturday and preach a very emotional to just people I grew up with, just very weighty, bringing the gospel to them. And then, of course, the pressure you kind of feel at Easter. I just took Monday off. I just told our staff I'm not coming in. you know, we, I, when I told us I'm feeling a little thin. I'm feeling a little stretched, and I did that. I ended up waking up way too early, so I came up to the church and worked for a couple hours. But then I went and gardened the rest of the day. And so we just have to, man. We have to do that. You as a pastor need to know I'm thin. I'm a little thin right now. I'm gonna sleep in tomorrow. I'm gonna do some things that get my mind off things and just rest. Take that
Do you think
Sabbath attitude.
yeah, and that's kinda really more of a Sabbath attitude. But you mentioned humility. Connect sleep and the need for sleep and the need for regular sleep with flesh that out a little bit more. What
Okay.
you know, why is that a sign of humility if I'm, trying to burn both ends
I just feel
or not?
like it's saying I can't get it all done. While I go to sleep, God, you're gonna have to be working on the things that I can't work on in my sleep. And I think Piper preached, was it? Oh, it was MacArthur, and one of the Together for the Gospels actually
Yeah.
preached a sermon on sleep
Yep.
and how it is just I got to trust God that yeah I could stay up and do some more work on this Easter sermon a little more, but I have to be humble enough to say, you know what, God can handle it. God can multiply my efforts where I don't have to stay up terrible hours to finish my stuff.
I was
Yeah,
listening to another podcast of Danny Aiken was being interviewed, and Danny's the pastor of, or excuse me, the president of Southeastern Seminary, and he worked for Moeller for several years before becoming the president there. And he would talk about trying to keep up with Moeller's schedule and how finally he just had to tell Moeller, like, look, I can't do it. Like, I can't keep up with your schedule. I need rest. And he even said, like, if he's not, 9:30, 10 o'clock asleep and getting up at 6 or 7, I mean, getting, a good 8+ hours of sleep, like, he can't function. And it was kind of refreshing to hear someone in that sphere, say those types of things because we oftentimes hear the opposite. It's the
yeah,
it's the Maulers or the Devers or those guys who whatever require so little sleep that you think, man, I can't do that. And yet to hear someone like him say, no, I totally need it, and I could tell if I'm not getting it regularly, it messes me up. I mean, it was kind of freeing to hear somebody else say, hey, this is my body's natural rhythm, and I need to be able to recognize that, and I need to kind of give into it because if you don't give into it, ultimately it will. And I think this is why a lot of guys struggle with maybe some mental health as well as other physical health is because they're just not getting the sleep that their body actually needs.
yeah. And you just have to, man, you just have to be consistent. I'm old enough that man, I need my sleep, and I don't need a lot. I do 7 hours every night, but I'm always in bed at the same exact time every night. I take my melatonin, and then I watch an old 30-minute sitcom. Usually never finish the sitcom because I'm out and just creating. I mean, she used to be very undisciplined, and maybe up at to one this night, and that's just not a way to live. When you build consistency, you can just you can hit the bed and be asleep pretty quick when you're used to a disciplined pattern like that.
That's good. Okay, we mentioned it a little bit, but we railed it in. So the next thing would be we're working out regularly, or we're trying to do something 30 minutes a day, walk or whatever, and then we're saying, hey, you got to get rest, you got to sleep, you got to have develop those kind of patterns because they're going to help along the way. And we talked about it for just a minute, but then there comes the all that can be great, but if we're not disciplined with the food we're putting in our mouth, we can kind of be undoing a lot of the good things that we're doing, correct?
Man, so let me ask you this.
Okay.
What is easier? Running 3 miles, running a 5K,
Mhm.
or not eating that extra slice of pizza?
What pizza are we talking about? No, 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 of course, yeah, yeah, not eating the pizza, right? Not eating that extra calories for
Yeah.
sure.
That's the biggest miscalculation I think we make is just calorie intake because that's pretty much what it is. It pretty much takes a marathon or not a marathon, but a 5K to run off a pizza when you can eliminate those calories just by not eating them. And
Now you're a
so,
macro guy, but you're a macro guy
yeah,
too,
I'm a
right?
macro guy. Yeah,
Okay, tell us
macro
about that.
fat. Well, I get real in the weeds, but I use a avatar nutrition program where it kind of gives me my calories in the form of proteins, carbs, and fats. And so everything I eat goes in an app, and I try to eat this same amount of food every day. And it's funny. Me and John David Smith, those of you who know him.
Baptist Missionary Association missions director,
Yeah.
Dr. John David
Yeah.
Smith.
Well, he always, when we talk, one of the point, you have those things that you talk about, and he's into fitness, and he'll try different stuff. I try different stuff, and I remember the year before last, he saw me, and he was like, he's like, "Hey, what you been doing?" I said, "Man, I've been doing good. I just lost 20 pounds." And he said, "Didn't you lose 20 pounds? Hadn't you just lost 20 pounds the last time I saw you?" I said, "Well, John David," I said, "I'm really good at losing weight. When I get my mind in it, I can totally lose that weight. I lose it in a healthy way, calorie deficit, and not anything extreme, pound and a half, 2 pounds a week." I said, "The only thing I'm better at than losing weight is putting it right back on." So, I mean, that's Crystal all the time. It's like, why can't you just be normal? Like, you're either like have your food in a scale, or you're just like eating everything in sight. And I was like, yeah, I wish I could be more like you and just eat a couple bites of this and be okay. But that's not me. Like I said, I'm the meth addict when it comes to food, and I have to, man, I have to pray. It's a spiritual battle for me. There's a what's her name, Tillahay. She last year wrote a book called Broken Bread. What is her name?
Yeah, I know the book. I don't know her
Yeah.
name yet.
Anyway, it's a book called Broken Bread, and she just has chapters in there about different battles with food. And like when I read the one on gluttony, it was like she was looking into my soul. She was looking into my soul, and that was a healthy read. But yeah, man, I love food, and one of the reasons I diet the way I do is just I can kind of have some things I like. I don't have to just eat chicken breast and broccoli all day. But it's a battle. It's a battle. But I do really do get convicted about I don't want to be morbidly obese and get in the pulpit and try to talk to my people about discipline. I want to line those things out.
Well, and I think what you're also talking about is that this is something that's not a this is not a quick fix. Like, all the things that we talked about are not, these are not quick fix things. These are not, hey, why don't you just fast for 3 days and everything will be fine. This is setting up disciplines and setting up routines that are really for the long haul. That this is something that we would encourage guys to do this not for 6 months, not for, 6 years, but, like, this needs to be the regular pattern of your life, which can sound like a lot, especially if you're younger. So talk about what that needs to look like, the kind of the discipline and consistency element of developing this for the remainder of your ministry or your life.
Well, like I said, I just told you I'm not very good at that. But one thing I am trying to do, like I just finished a 3 month of really dialing in my macros to lose about 2 pounds a week. And now instead of just like a rubber band just snapping back into doing whatever I want to do, I now set my macros on maintenance, right? So I'm actually still, and it's pretty amazing when I've been dieting for 3 months, how much I can now eat. Is I'm a big guy, I'm a tall guy. I work out, so I really can. When I'm just living in maintenance, I really can eat within reason and still eat a lot of tasty, great food. And so I'm trying to like for a month stay on maintenance and then go back on maybe lose about 10 or 50 more pounds on after this is over and then go right back on to maintenance. I'm still trying to track all my food, but instead of just going from one extreme to not tracking at all, I'm just trying to stay in line there with my food intake. And again, I ran, yeah, I've done 5 marathons. That's not to brag because I kind of think marathon run is crazy now,
Mhm.
um, but I did 3 of those at 250 or heavier. That just shows you, even though I'm running 20-mile training runs and I go home and I go, "Oh, I ate 20 miles. I can eat all this
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
want." It's just, man, I think so much is solved by our diet, by calorie intake. Um,
No, I do think, and that's one of the main my biggest struggles is even when I'm working out, it's like, I'm working out to kind of justify the food that I'm putting in my mouth instead of, hey, if I really want that workout to matter, how about I not, how about
yeah.
I not stuff my face, even if it's not, terrible food, processed foods or whatever else. Hey, calories are calories. And if you're not going to create a calorie deficit, then you're kind of hurting all of the work that you're trying to do. But ultimately, as we said at the beginning, this isn't just so much about getting in shape or, being able to run a 5K without, having to train all summer or something like that. This is really about what we're called to do as ministers of the gospel. And so these last few minutes, I really want us to kind of relate this. I want you to relate this to what we said at the beginning, that this is about being able to stand in a pulpit, about ministering to our people and being able to do that faithfully and do that well for an extended period of time. So kind of summarize all of that with those thoughts in mind.
Can I rewind and just make one other point before
Of
we
course.
go there? Pastors, have a doctor and have a good relationship with your doctor and probably get blood work a couple times a year. I went about 20 years without, in my 20s and 30s, I didn't have a doctor. Uh,
Well, Nate
I'd not
Bargatze
sit foot in a
tells us
doctor's
Nate Bargatze
office.
says we don't need one,
Yeah,
really.
yeah. Right, we really don't, but, I lost my brother, he was barely 50, and we have pretty good genetics. Our parents, grandparents, our aunts and uncles tend to live a long time, and so, I think my brother kinda took that for granted and didn't really take care of himself in several ways, and I just don't wanna do that, and so there's some things that maybe could have been prevented if he'd have been able to see a doctor, if he would have not been stubborn. My brother was a nurse and he
I was
was
gonna say, how
very
about your
good.
brother was in the medical
Yeah.
profession?
He was awesome at he was a hospice nurse. He was awesome at taking care of other people's health. He did not take care of himself. And so I used to kind of make it a point of pride that, oh, I don't ever go to the doctor. I don't even have a doctor. But man, I'm there a lot, and we have a routine blood work every few months, and just to check out all my levels and everything. My friend Chuck Flurry, who just fought cancer, and
Shout out to
hopefully
Chuck.
yeah, hopefully that's not coming back. We're praying that it doesn't, but he's big on it now. He's big on it now. He's like, it was time for me to have a colonoscopy. I'm of that age, right? Getting too personal here, but he kept tagging me on Facebook on all these colonoscopy until finally I was like, okay, fine. But I'm really glad. I'm really glad
I'm
to have
still
people
holding
that,
out. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
giving in to him
yeah.
just yet.
I really am
Chuck's
glad
an
to have
only
people in my
child. He needs to be
life.
humbled
Yeah,
every now and then,
yeah,
You
yeah,
gotta
yeah, yeah. Man, have a doctor, go and see him often, and just keep an eye on things, because there may be things going on in your life emotionally that's linked to maybe something you got going on in your body, low T or things like that.
No, I think that's wise. I mean, we do. I know you've got not only did we have Chuck go through a cancer situation, but recently one of your best friends growing up is been diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he's going through those kind of stuff. And that was a guy that was, I mean, we would all say that he was in good health, is in good health. Of course, Senator Sass recently with his cancer diagnosis, and this was a guy that again, and you never know about these things, and yet I think that's good advice that regular checkups, regular appointments with doctors, and doing those things, especially when you become of a certain age, could be greatly beneficial to you. And my dad, I don't think my dad's old. He's 67. He's a young man. He just had a quadruple bypass, and and it's just like those are things that they make you nervous, and they make you more aware of the very fact that we are finite creatures that still bear the responsibility of being good stewards of this body that we've been given, and you can't take it for granted, and you can't just not treat it well, because that's a sign of poor stewardship. And so as pastors, our ability to do the things that God has called us to do, it really does matter. And shepherding is an important part of pastoring. I mean, you can't be a faithful shepherd if you're not able to move, if you're not able to function. And so, like I said, help us think through that real quick as we kind of close out.
I was reading Jerry Bridges this morning for my class tonight, and he said people say that Christianity, being a Christian is a marathon. He's like, that is untrue. He said it is a marathon with obstacles. It's like imagine a 26-mile with walls and mud and all of this. Think of Warrior Dash, but a marathon. If that's true of the normal Christian, it's certainly true of the pastor. We have, and we have a lot on us. It's important that our bodies and our minds are functionally. I want to have a long ministry. I'm going to need to have a long ministry. With a lot of us as pastors, we're going to need to work a long time just to be able to take care of our family financially. And so if we don't take care of other things, then we're taken out of the pulpit and our means of income is gone. Like I said, I want to be in my kids, grandkids, and grandkids' lives if possible. And I want to stick around. I think that's a good thing. And they're just exercise, man, taking a walk when we have a friend that's texted us twice a day with just a pastor with heavy things. And man, a walk, it's amazing what a walk or a run or getting under the barbell does for me in those times.
Hmm.
There's some about it. There's something about that works it, that body kind of fuels the mind and gets some things worked out in our body. And that's not unspiritual. We are spiritual beings in a physical body, and we need to take care of that and just be able to run the race. God's marked out a race for us. God has ordained a certain amount of sermons for us to preach, a certain amount of sick people in our congregation to take care of, and if need be, bury. And I don't want to take that for granted. I
Hmm.
want to fight to stay healthy, that I can do all the things that God's called me to do in the time that He's given me, whether that's a very short time or a very long time, like I would like to have out of this life.
Amen. Yeah. No, I think that's a good note to end on. When we say that we want to see healthy pastors and healthy pulpits, we mean well-rounded, healthy pastors. We want to see you healthy mentally. We want to see you healthy emotionally. We want to see you healthy physically, and yes, most important, we want to see you healthy spiritually. And that's what we want to encourage. And so, thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for taking the time to the Preaching Lab podcast. We really do care about pastors. We care about churches. We care about these things because we're on the front lines with you, and we know how hard it can be. We know how high the highs can be, and we know how low the lows can be. And if you need a pastor to talk to, hey, find us on Facebook, the Preaching Lab Facebook page. We'd love to connect with you. We'd love to talk with you. Uh, Adam loves loves to counsel and to share those gifts that the Lord's given him to help guys. And if we can be of any assistance in any of these areas, please let us be. So we thank you for listening. Until next time, praying for you, for your churches, and for God's ministry to increase as you faithfully preach the gospel and seek to be healthy pastors filling healthy pulpits. Thank you guys. Need a new link?